I gotta say that game on Saturday night was in a lot of ways what I expected. Two pretty talented teams, really good teams with weapons on both sides of the ball, talent on both sides of the ball coming together. And North Carolina a little bit more poised, a little bit more buttoned up there in the second half, and gained a little separation to win it by 10. So Miami falls to 0-2 in the conference. They've got a big game, of course, coming up Saturday against Clemson. Cam Underwood's here, of course. State of the U is your destination, folks, each and every day for Miami football coverage. Cam, how we doing tonight?
Good, man. Good. Just another Wednesday night. We were chopping it up before we came on here. So, I have a random, thing going on in my life I got to deal with. Mark shared a random thing that he's dealing with. But regardless of any of that, everyone, here we are talking Miami Hurricanes. It's great to be here on a Wednesday evening. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening and supporting. And let's dive into the action.
Absolutely. I'll just leave the floor to you in regards to your takes on the game. Of course, on the North Carolina side, they're awfully happy about Tez Walker showing up 2 games ago, and he showed what kind of difference maker he can be. He's certainly tough to corral in the secondary once he gets his hands on the football, and tough to track down before that when the ball's in the air. So he was a bit of a difference in this game. And again, until there was some separation there late in the third quarter, it was just one of those games where, hey, these are two really good, high-powered teams that have athletes all over the place, and there was certainly high entertainment value there.
Yeah, there was, 17-14 Miami lead at the half. There were a couple times that Drake May got sacked that, one, he fumbled it in the end zone, but they recovered it and returned it out to like the 8-yard line or whatever. That was a massive play. There was another blindside blitz that Kiko Mawigoa got there and wasn't able. Maui Noah, it's a G. Or the G is an N. And sorry. But he got there and hit Drake May very hard from the backside because he was looking to his left. So it wasn't like the blind side left tackle. He was looking to his left, so it came from the right side. But still, I would have loved a chop and rip and get that ball out because he didn't see him at all. We got the sack and the lost yardage, but love seeing getting that ball out. And you miss those opportunities and then you turn the ball over, another 3 times. Technically 4 because the last play of the game, there was an interception on a heave. But, just like last week against Georgia Tech, technically it was 5 because there was a fumble on the lateral play, but it was 4 in the run of actual action, not the last play of the game. But no matter how you count it, 7 turnovers during actual run of play, discounting the single last snap of both games. Or if you want to count them in there and just say, hey, it's a snap, it matters, 9 over the last 2 weeks. Whichever way you go with it, that's way too many. And when you have a team that's as talented as North Carolina, that's on a par level, like with Miami, turning over that much, you're -4 on the or 3, whatever you want to call it, on the turnover ratio. It's just not going to be sustainable. So that's something that really needs to get tightened up. You have another couple injuries during the course of that game. Nigel Kelly left for a little bit, and he's already been elevated up because Akeem Mesidor's been out and at defensive end, and that's been a major miss. But in terms of Quintez Walker, we've kind of been talking about the cornerbacks playing over their head so far this year, and like that still being an area of question. Like they made him look like this, a mix between Jerry Rice and Randy Moss. And look, he's good. He's going to go to the league. We made him look like the greatest receiver, one of the greatest receivers I've ever seen. Like it was just, and you just give him acres of space. That touchdown on the square in when they ran a dagger concept. So dagger, number 2 receiver goes vertical, number 1 receiver has a square in behind him. And so, the safety needs to close down that space, but he's occupied with the vertical. So then the cornerback needs to close down that space. Couldn't do it. And then everybody just kind of watched him run after that, which is not what you want to see. And then Jaden Davis just got, it was a mismatch. It was a big mismatch in terms of Quintez Walker, and you saw that play out. But Drake May was pretty regular, like 50% barely, if that, passing, under 50% in the first half. Defensive line is getting home, linebackers on blitzes. Cam Kinchins came on a blitz. They had a triple A gap blitz, so they brought 2 backers, and then after the backers, one was taken by the center and one was taken by the running back. After that, then comes Cam Kinchens from 10 yards on a free run. It was a little funny on the Monday pressers. Lance Guidry was talking about the fact that if Carolina would have motioned on that play, then the coverage responsibilities would have shifted and Cam would have been in coverage, and that's James Williams coming down the middle. And he was actually saying that James Williams was back after the possession. James Williams was back. He's saying, man, yeah, he was, 15 yards away from the ball, like, hey, Cam, let me go. And Cam was like, nah, stay over there. This is my turn. And they were like, fighting about who's going to get that blitz. And like, you got there and affected Drake May, which is great, but it wasn't enough. And then you turn the ball over. You have a lot of short fields. I mean, and then, it's another game where Carolina ran for 200-plus yards. The running back, Omarion Hampton, had 197 by his lonesome. Cam Kinchens got caught flat-footed on a 60-yard run that, like, it looked like something off of NCAA on freshman mode. Like, he ran straight at him and was just like, your feet aren't moving, so I'm just going to shoop and go around you. And it was like, oh, like, it was crazy. But that's what Carolina does to Miami. So that's 5 losses in a row to the Tar Heels, 7 out of 9. We have not beaten Mac Brown in the last, I believe, 8 games of him being at North Carolina across 20 years, with a stint at Texas and a stint in television in between. But I hate to say that this is pretty much what I expected. I mean, if you take away a touchdown off of an interception, this is like, what, a 3-point game, which is what 3 of the previous 4 losses, including the last 2 before this year, were. I mean, that's pretty par for the course. And, it's getting to the point now where, again, this is why the Georgia Tech game mattered so much to me, because you got to find ways to win. You have to make those plays and not find ways to lose. But against a team of similar talent and a demonstrated ability to beat you, when you do things like that, when you have errors like that, in spite of Carolina having like 14 penalties, by the way, they're still going to, beat your brains in. So, it's bordering on same old sorry ass Miami territory, honestly. With Clemson coming up this week, and Clemson that Miami has not beaten at home since 1956. And I did check that out on Winspedia just to be sure, because I saw somebody else tweet that. I said, that can't be. That's absolutely right. The times that we had beaten them in the ACC were up in Clemson, South Carolina, and we've lost the last 4 games to them by a combined score of 178-30, with none of those games being a closer margin than 25 points, which was the 2020 game, which had a late touchdown, by the way. So most of these games have been 30-point blow. I mean, like 4 or 5 touchdown blowouts. So, you don't love it really from a performance standpoint, but and all the goodwill that we had engendered and that bonus win from Texas A&M, you gave it back. You lose a game that I thought you're going to lose, but then it's like a game that maybe 3 weeks ago looked very winnable against Clemson. I don't see it, but yeah, lots going on. But we got to keep pressing forward. I'm going to be there. I think people are going to be there to root. I think people are going to be there to watch the game. But like, the vibes are negative. Can't lie.
Yeah, one quick note on Tez Walker. Yes. So I watch a lot of football, but I've not seen Tez Walker play because he left a small school in North Carolina to go to Kent State, and I'm not watching, God bless my alma mater, I do not watch them play football. So don't watch Tez Walker there. So I always saw that as, oh, this is a really nice addition. I've heard great things about him, but just a really nice addition. Like you say, he should be playing on Sundays, but when I saw him play in this game, and then you triggered it by saying our secondary made him look like, the second coming of Jerry Rice. And I thought, yeah, I didn't think he was supposed to be that level player. He's a really nice player.
Right.
But wow, he tore it up, of course, 6 for 132 and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, and again, like I mean, hey, maybe I was wrong. Maybe he is a first-team All-American. Maybe that's why the athletic director and head coach were stomping so hard to get him eligible, because they knew from Kent State that this kid, was going to be, like a first-team All-American kind of game-wrecking force to the level that we saw. I mean, again, I think that he's good. I think that he could, even get drafted and play in the league and everything. But like, man, it was just like, it was the impact was crazy and the performance was really crazy. But I mean, again, just in so many ways, you give him acres and acres of space. And like the thing that let me know that Jaden Davis man to man against Quintez Walker was going to be an issue. That good hold, I think they called it holding, not defensive pass interference, but they were taking a shot and Jaden Davis was beat. And so he did what I said Cam Kinton should have did the week before against Georgia Tech, and he just grabbed him and tackled him and said, nah, I'll give you the 15 yards, but we're not going to give you, the end zone. And then they were like, oh, wait a minute. We're going at 22, because if it's like that on a play that was like not really designed, like it had a route that could have been exploited by Quintez Walker, but it wasn't like a featuring Quintez play, and it got loose like that. He's like, oh, we're going a featuring Quintez play. And then that's when they went over the top, literally either the next play or 2 plays later. And when I saw that and they went right back to it, I said, oh boy, like they found their mark. They said, like, this guy is overmatched. And like, I love all of the commentary and analysis that, we do on Miami Hurricanes that other people do, and they have their favorites who they've known, and, guys from down here, they're in high school, and, and, there's another content creator who, has been pushing Jaden Davis for years because he knows Jaden and everything. Or no, I'm sorry, Daryl Porter the second. He's like, oh, look at this jam on the other side. During the North Carolina game, literally tweeted it. He was like zoomed in and was like, look at this is why teams don't throw over here, and I'm like, bro, you got this other dude running free, scoring points, changing the scoreboard, queuing up the band every time, because I think 2 of his first 3 catches were touchdowns, right? And I'm like, so why are you not putting Daryl Porter Jr. in this matchup, right? And it's like, Bomani Jones used to be a Falcons fan, and he makes this point all the time. There was a game in 1991 in which Jerry Rice scored 5 touchdowns against Charles Demery on the one side as the cornerback, while Deion Sanders is on John Taylor playing left cornerback, locking that down. John Taylor had like 1 catch for 12 yards or something, but Jerry Rice had 5 touchdowns on the other dude. I felt like I was watching a version of that. Like, he can't, like, I'm sorry, like Jaden Davis, he has a role on the team, but you can't check him. We've seen it. You couldn't stick him, grabbed him, held him, and the next play they bombed you, right? And then they bomb you again. You can't guard him, and this other dude is locked down on the other side, not getting balls thrown his way, and he's doing his job, but the defense is giving up point after point after touchdown after touchdown after catch on the other side when you could do, like, it's, and I get that, field corner and boundary corner have different responsibilities and different character traits and da-da-da. But goddamn it, at some point you got to say, hey, look, this guy, you can't guard him. Switch that. At some point, and it didn't happen. It was just like, it was really insanity, because you're just like, I'm hoping that Jaden's gonna get it together, and didn't.
Yes, because in that situation, you're basically not impacting the rest of the defense. And yes, true. What is the worst case scenario? Well, the worst case scenario is already happening. So go ahead and switch them and see if it fixes the issue.
Or, I mean, it ameliorates the situation in some kind of way. Just something. But no, we're going to leave this other guy. And again, look, I know defensive backs are going to give up catches. I know. And like, so don't think, I mean, okay, for the performance against North Carolina, I am dumping on Jaden Davis because clearly Quintez Walker owned him all day long, right? But I know that everybody watching is like, well, Cam Kinton gave up the touchdown against Georgia Tech. He also got ran by in this game, like I already said, by a running back who was just coming right at him and just went around him. James Williams' missed coverage. I know, and I'm not trying just to be all doom and gloom, but like at some point, they identified and said, that's the mismatch we're going to every time. At some point, you had to do something different, and they didn't.
Absolutely. And so in a 41-31 game, and considering everything that we just went through, and then Amari and Hampton on the ground at $197 at 8+ per, the culprits are obviously more so on the defense. So it's a combination of defensive lapses and turnovers on offense.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, like the offense has to support the defense, and they really have not in the last couple of weeks. Yardage notwithstanding, because I know, like, in the games, there have been big yards for, where's the total offense number? Game log. Come on, computer. Why you always wants to go slow?
482.
482, and then it was 520 something the week before with all those turnovers and whatnot, so it's just like you're moving the ball, right? You held the ball for 30 minutes each game, like you're doing the things that need to do. You're still a top 15, I think it's number 12 in the country with a 16.3 explosive play rate on offense, right? So 1 out of every 6 plays is explosivity, like embodied, and we saw that, in terms of this game, and everything. But just leaning on the defense, and just putting them in bad situations, and it just kind of snowballed. And then Carolina, really wasn't. I mean, for the most part, they ran the ball really well, and they threw the ball really well to Quintez Walker. But like, it wasn't like Drake May was just dotting us up all day long or anything, just sitting back there. You know what I mean? That wasn't what happened. But it just, you have to do your part, and the critical malfunctions and errors and breakdowns on offense, namely the turnovers, have to stop. I mean, Henry Parrish about to cross the goal line, like on the inch line, you fumble into the end zone. Like, that can't happen. And that was Henry Parrish's first fumble at Miami. He had one, I think, his first year at Ole Miss. And last week or 2 weeks ago, Donald Chaney Jr., that was his first fumble in college. So neither of these dudes had put the ball on the ground wearing orange and green, and have in the last 2 weeks. Tyler Van Dyke, still staring down guys and everything. And just, and it just, whenever it's a dictated passing down, I'm throwing to 7. He's locking in on Xavier Restrepo. And again, Xavier Restrepo has a role on this team. There's no reason he should have 19 targets in a game when Colby Young and Jacoby George combined for 16. I'm sorry. That's just not what it should be. And on that 4th down up the seam, like Carolina, I mean, there was multiple plays where Carolina was like, cool, we're going to sit on the short route, and then that first defender is going to play trail technique, and then we're going to have a safety over the top. And on that one incompletion up the right seam, I know you guys can see it in your head, like the pass hit the trailing defender in the booty cheeks, because he's just like, I'm running with my back. I'm here. So there's nowhere for a back shoulder. You're not going to lob it over the top and get intercepted. So we're bracketing him on every key down. And it's just like, but also on that same play, why I mentioned that as well, Isaiah Horton, who had more snaps than Colby Young last game, keep an eye on that, by the way, was wide open on a square in from the left side for a first down. Did he look that way? No. What did he do? 2, 3, 4. Oh, throwing up. Darn, he didn't get it. There's multiple guys there. We saw that with the interception in the end zone against Georgia Tech, where they had that same trail and bracket on top, and the defender from the backside even said, let me get on the party, and he's the one who came over and had the interception. Like, and I know that it's nitpicking, right? Because he made some good throws, including that first touchdown on that, out and up wheel of the sideline to Restrepo. He had another, good touchdown pass. Like, Tyler Van Dyke does things well, but the major malfunction breakdowns gotta stop for this team to have a chance. You cannot keep giving the ball away at the rate that we've been doing it the last 2 weeks. It cannot happen.
Hurricanes Live right here at the Voice of College Football. We do this each and every Wednesday night. Cam's the guy that makes it happen for us. We appreciate Cam. He's done this forever with us. A total of, not necessarily this show, but we're working on 10 years. That's hard to believe, isn't it? Going back to the Louisville Bowl game of 2013. Wow. It's crazy.
Yeah. That was the first game. I was still teaching at Miramar. That was, oh, man. Jeez. It's been that long.
We'll knock off these super chats, and then we will turn the page and talk Clemson and bring in Jordan Bowman here. So Falconer TRX, you know the deal. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. You support us each and every week. Thank you so much for that, Falconer TRX. Should have bet $305 Miami to beat Texas A&M, lose to Georgia Tech. Yeah, well, what a parlay that would have been if those would have existed.
I
Those
mean, you
type deals.
probably could have gotten that, and I mean, you would have made some money because I know that would have been plus money on both of those. Multiplied by the parlay, add in a couple other legs to that. Yeah, that could have been some nice money.
Falconer, Miami needs turnovers. I still got my chains.
Yeah. I mean, we do, and I mean, the thing is, in both of these games, we've gotten the ball out, especially against North Carolina, but we were not able to obtain the turnover, but then gave it away on the other end. But yeah, we need something good, and you see what the benefit has been for our opponents these last 2 weeks. Flip that, yeah, turnovers and the turnover chain, the spirit of that improvement would be a welcome sight for sure.
I especially enjoy the conversation when I can kick back and I've got two really good football minds and two really good football brains concerning their particular teams in specifically. And we got Jordan Bowman here, who hosts a show for us, the All In Clemson Tigers show on Thursday nights over on the Clemson channel, and does the post game for us on the Clemson Tigers as well. Jordan, appreciate you being here, man.
Thank you, Mark. Glad to be here, Cam. Nice to see you, my man. I'm a huge fan of your work over on the State of the U. The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. Love that, and been a long time listener of the Basketball Conference podcast. So love your appearances on there. So it's an honor to be on here with you and ready to talk some ball.
Yeah, man, Jordan,
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure to meet you. You now make the third Clemson fan of color that I know, because there's not many of y'all. My homeboy Phil went to Clemson
it's
for
a
his
little sparse
master's
down here, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then another friend of mine who's also from North Carolina, but a lot of his family went. He's from Charlotte. A lot of his family went to Clemson. So them two dudes and you. So hey, we're expanding the Rolodex in that way, even as we speak.
Should I read into that in some way?
It's just that the fan base is overwhelmingly not colored. I mean, it will.
If you've ever been to the upstate of South Carolina, I mean, you'll know what he's talking about.
Yeah, it's just speaking on the ratio. I mean, hey, but again, even just talking about there, I literally just tweeted that I only knew two, Clemson fans of ethnicity other than Caucasian. Now know three, so it's been expanded even as we speak. But regardless, we're gonna line it up between the lines and talk about some football, and hopefully it's competitive this weekend. That's all I can say.
Well, Jordan, we'll let you tee it up if you want to pose a question or make a comment, and I'll let you guys dig into it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can just give some overarching thoughts about this game, because I think one thing when I look at this particular matchup, it's pretty interesting to see kind of the mindset of both fan bases coming into this game. It feels pretty similar. It's kind of I think both fan bases are a little bit on edge, and it's kind of weird considering that one team has won their last two games, the other has lost their last two games, and we're coming into this, both teams coming in unranked. But when you look at how the trajectory of the season could change for both programs, depending on the result of this game, it really tells the whole story. I guess from the Clemson perspective, the club level, as Cam has eloquently put it in the past, has been off to a rocky start. Obviously the loss at Duke was pretty disappointing. Put up a ton of yards, only get 7 points, turn the ball over a bunch, fumble at the 1 yard line twice. Just really fluky, just what the hell are we doing type stuff. So you were able to kind of excuse that in a little bit. It was definitely a shock to the system, but you could kind of write it off as, wow, that can't happen again. But then you watch the next really 3 weeks against Charleston Southern, Florida Atlantic, and then of course Florida State, and the costly turnovers continue to happen in just the worst possible times. I mean, the red zone offense is one of the worst in the country at this point. I think Clemson is only converting about 58% of their red zone opportunities into points, which is abysmal. And so I think the offense has not really coalesced. Bringing in Garrett Riley, the thought was that, okay, we finally have a real offensive system, and the things that we were all complaining about for years under Tony Elliott and then Brandon Streeter last year are finally going to be fixed. We have 4 or 5 starters returning on the offensive line. DJ Uyunglele is, he was a scapegoat for a lot of our problems, and he's gone now. So the idea in the Clemson fan base was like, man, we're finally going to get back to scoring points, and it really hasn't been that way. And I think that there's a lot of things that you can point to, from personnel not quite playing up to their talent level. You can point to the inexperience on the coaching staff. You can point to Dabo not using the transfer portal. There are a lot of things that have been leveled at this Clemson program, and honestly, all of it is valid. And I think it's kind of a chicken or the egg type of situation. Is what is the origin of the issues? It's really just all of them put together. So when I look at this matchup, going into it, I think both teams are kind of similar, at least in the last couple of weeks, as far as a quarterback that's been really, really up and down, really, really good defense, physical defense, great defensive lines, but they just have not coalesced on offense the way that a lot of the fan base expected. And I think this is going to be a rock fight just based off of what I've seen. I feel like both of these teams have great defenses that are going to be able to limit what the other is doing offensively. And I think the winner of this game is on good pace to kind of, revive their season, so to speak.
Interesting. Let me take it back to the offense point with Garrett Riley, because that was the thought of everyone, myself included, of, hey, finally going outside of the Clemson tree family, injecting new ideas, updating the system. But Dabo clearly, famously came out and loudly said, we brought in someone who's going to coordinate the Clemson offense. We're not changing to the Riley brothers air raid system thing. He's coming and running our offense the way that we've done it. Has that been the issue? Have there been updates to the system? Or talk me through that, because there was a clear disconnect between the way that they couched it as we stole the offense that you saw from TCU that got them to the championship game. We stole that guy. We're going to run that. And Dabo clearly throwing water on that fire and saying, absolutely not. We're running our offense. So walk me through what's going on a little bit.
I think it's somewhere in between. I don't think that the offense is completely, has completely changed, like overhauled 100%. But I think when you watch and see some of the concepts that they've run, you see kind of the Garrett Riley influence, and you see kind of what they're trying to be. I think the comparisons to TCU last year, and Garrett Riley has spoken about this. He was pretty candid when asked about how the offense has kind of not really looked like how it did at TCU, and he was frankly just like, we don't really have the personnel that we had. He basically said that. He said, the personnel is what it is right now. And so that told me I don't really have the personnel that I had at TCU. I mean, I don't have a 5th-year, 6-year quarterback, first-round draft pick at wide receiver, 2 1,000-yard backs, veteran offensive line. So in a lot of ways, that TCU offense was in much better shape coming in. And I think that's kind of been the frustration. I think the personnel right now is kind of what's limiting this offense, and not necessarily the scheme and the Garrett Riley influences, because I just don't think this group is playing up to their ability, whether it be the offensive line. Cade Klubnik still has a lot of growing to do based off of what we've seen. And you haven't been able to run the ball as consistently as you had hoped. And, the wide receivers are, while they're better than they were last year, they're still not they're not the wide receivers that you used to associate with Clemson in the past. So I think it's a lot of things that have kind of limited how this offense has been able to operate.
Okay. So then Miami's defensive coordinator and head coach both noted Cade Klubnik's athleticism being a positive for Clemson's offense. So between him and Will Shipley, and obviously to an extent Phil Maffa, because they're kind of doing a thunder and lightning thing, how do you see that trio affecting the game in the running game, in the pass game? But that trio of guys in the backfield, Klubnik, Shipley, and Maffa, what should we daunting for Miami as we go up against that trio?
Yeah, I mean, I think you should expect to see a good bit of them. I mean, the prevailing, connotation that people have when they think of air raid is, oh, they throw the ball a bunch, and it's a lot of passing, a lot of quick passes, not a whole lot of running. It's really just you run every once in a while just because you have to. But Garrett Riley has been a run first coordinator throughout at multiple stops. I mean, he was 55-45 run to pass at TCU. He gets the quarterback involved in a lot of design runs. So you're going to see, Clemson really try to emphasize running the ball. And I think you kind of saw it in the second half of that Wake Forest game, which was another rock fight that that was something to watch. But they ran for over 160 yards in that second half because they just decided to line it up and run the ball and, stop screwing around and stop letting Cade Klubnik put the ball in danger and turning it over and just let Will Shipley, Phil Maffa cook, and then, spell them a little bit with some design Cade runs and a pass here or there. So I think you're going to see a lot of that. I think they kind of started to find something on the offensive line in the second half of that game, because that has been a point of emphasis, is, kind of figuring out who the best five is. And I think in that second half, they really found a group that they really liked that you'll see on Saturday. So, yeah, I think the run game is going to be heavily emphasized. They're going to do a lot of, Garrett Riley is a huge counter guy. That's the bread and butter play. You're going to see counter over and over and over again in different ways. And he mixes it up formationally a lot. But I think that's really what you're going to see a lot of from Clemson, and not really a whole ton of Cade Klubnik dropping back if they can avoid doing that.
Well, we saw counter ad nauseum against North Carolina in, what was that, 2020, because they ran for 793 yards, whatever it was. So that's a little bit daunting. Yeah. I mean, everybody remembers that because they're still running from that same game, honestly. But in terms of the Clemson defense, so there's some old guys, honestly, Jeremiah Trotter and Xavier Thomas, who was like a top 5-star recruit in like 2018 or something, who's still around.
Six-year guy. Yep.
Yeah. Hey, look, we got a dude with my same first name, Cam, who transferred from Oregon, who's an 8th year, and he's going to petition for a 9th year, but he had like 4 season-ending injuries, so He hasn't been playing through all of it, but still.
Is this the tight end, right?
The tight end, right? 84. Yeah. But balancing those dudes with a true freshman mid-season All-American in Peter Woods, the defensive tackle.
Honestly, too. And TJ Parker as well.
Oh, okay. So tell me about the defense that Miami is going up against. Where could the Hurricanes take some advantage? Would it be in the running game that's been consistent for Miami? Would it be in the passing game that has been intermittent but pretty explosive for the Hurricanes? Tyler Van Dyke, leading passer in the conference, is going to throw that out there. Things like that. Where can the Hurricanes take some advantage?
Yeah. Through 6 games, this Clemson defense has been pretty stout. I think outside of the Duke game, I think there were a lot of sloppy moments. I think this is a pretty complete unit. If I had to pick a area that I'd call a weakness, Clemson's linebackers are obviously, tremendous. Jeremiah Trotter, Barrett Carter, those guys are likely going to be first, second round picks in the NFL draft. But I think I think Clemson has struggled at times, defending running backs out of the backfield, getting the linebackers, particularly Trotter and Wade Woodaz, kind of getting them to cover. I think that teams in the past have exploited that a little bit. I think you could see a lot of that. I know Shannon Dawson will definitely use the running backs in the passing game a good bit. So I think that's kind of where I would go to. I think this Clemson secondary has been pretty solid. They will be getting Nate Wiggins back, their top cover corner. And the safeties have been pretty solid. They haven't given up a ton of explosive plays. So I think getting the defense, especially the second level, to their eyes moving a lot and creating some busted coverages and stuff like that. I think that's where you'll see Miami try to do that. So whether that's motioning Restrepo or something, and then sneaking, I don't know, Henry Parrish, or name your running back out of the backfield. Stuff like that, I could totally see. And I think this Clemson defense has been susceptible to that through 6 games.
It'll be interesting with that specifically, because Miami Hurricanes running backs, as I look at it now, only have 10 catches on the year, and 3 of those have been from third and fourth string dudes in mop-up duty. So Henry Parrish has 7 catches, and he's missed time in games and everything. So that's not actually been a very big part of our passing arsenal at all. So it'll be interesting to see if we try to do that and take advantage of anything. But apart from some of the Jimmies and Joes that we've talked about, and some of the X's and O's, y'all have destroyed us since we last beat y'all. It's 178-30 over the last 4 games. That includes in the ACC championship game, that includes the COVID year, that includes 58-0, the swan song of Al Golden that I was there for. Took him almost an hour and 20 minutes to emerge from the locker room to do post-game interviews. And I mean, because he knew he kind of sat by himself in the locker room, from what we're told. He knew that he was going to go home and have a tough conversation with his wife and need to start packing his stuff. But I say all that to say that regardless of these things that we've talked about, why should I or any Hurricanes fan believe that realistically this game is going to be, south of a 3-touchdown, 4-touchdown Clemson win, which is what they've all been for the last decade?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, this is not, based off what we've seen through 6 weeks, this is by far the worst Clemson team. I won't say by far. I mean, last year's team was probably, if you name the last 4 matchups, last year's team was definitely the worst that they faced. But I don't think this team is much better. Honestly, they've been worse on offense, so probably a little bit better on defense. But this is not your, 2015, 16, 2018, even 2020. I mean, that's not the Clemson team you're about to face. This is a very flawed Clemson team, talented, but very flawed, and has shown that they are not, invincible. And
look, y'all were flawed last year and beat us by 30.
Yeah.
So,
but I think you guys are in better shape than you were. I mean, you weren't starting you'll actually be starting your starting quarterback, I think, this go around. So I think that'll help. Not starting a true freshman, just raw. I mean, talented but raw quarterback that isn't particularly accurate. So, yeah, I think this is not a dominant Clemson team. This is not a Clemson team that has found itself in as far as its identity and who they want to be offensively. So, I mean, I'm not expecting a Clemson, blowout. I mean, it would shock me, honestly, just based off of what I've seen. This offense has been, especially because of the offense, playing up and down to the competition. I thought they played really well against Florida State. Then, they played well against Syracuse, and then they followed that up with a 17-12 rock fight at home against a not a particularly good Wake Forest team, and a Wake Forest team that you've dominated throughout your school's history. So I think Miami fans should feel confident about this game being competitive. I think it could go either way. I know the spread is only, I think Clemson is a 4-point favorite at this point in time. Yeah. I mean, I think this is going to be a rock fight. I don't expect this Clemson offense to just all of a sudden find some explosive plays, and Cade Klubnik looks like a Heisman contender. But who knows?
Look, there's ways for y'all to put points on the board absent that. And wouldn't it be so very Clemson, especially in this matchup, right, that y'all have dominated for, since 2010 was the last time that then there was a gap, but like 15, 17, 20, and 22 with all them blowout wins against us, right? And look, you see this team that y'all have blown the doors off of time and time again, and then this being that get right game that nobody saw, like nobody really saw coming, but thought could maybe be possible. Like, that's where my brain is, because like it like this season seems like at this point, from the performance of the team, is slipping away from Miami. And you have a couple things go wrong early against y'all, and it snowballs, and then all of a sudden Clemson looks like capital letters Clemson that y'all have been for the last 10 years in conference, and then Miami's struggling, and Cristobal's record drops below 500 for his career at Miami, and all of a sudden it's 42 to 18, 42 to 10, 17 or something like that again, like last 2 years ago. And then it's like, well, where did this come from? It came from the fact that Clemson played Miami. Like, I could very strongly see that happening on Saturday.
If I may jump in real quick, because my brain is somewhere between those two marks in this way. I'll make a very rare comparison between Clemson and Iowa, where Iowa is a 3-point favorite against Minnesota this week. I don't have a whole lot of confidence that Iowa's going to win that game by that much, but it's almost like if Vegas could give us a second measurement beyond the point spread, if they also had a confidence factor, I have a high degree of confidence that Clemson's going to win this game, but I don't think they're going to embarrass Miami in any such way. I think it's going to be an extremely close game, but my confidence level in Clemson culture, program, coaching staff, all of that is pretty high in comparison to Miami. But I'm not expecting some dominant effort at all.
I wasn't expecting that in the last couple of times, and I wasn't expecting it the last couple of weeks. But you turn the ball over 9 times in 2 games, or 7 times, accepting the final snap of the both 2 games, whatever. But you turn the ball over that much, and who's to say, how things really are going to go? Tyler Van Dyke was seen on Monday with his right leg entirely wrapped up. So who knows what his mobility standpoint is going to be, and that's his back leg that he's going to push off of. So, hey, maybe he doesn't feel great. Maybe he floats a ball down the middle. Maybe he, zeroes in on Xavier Restrepo again. Maybe one of those, incredible defensive linemen that, even though the defense is not where it once was, the defensive line of Clemson is still pretty good. One of those guys gets loose, you get a sack fumble, all of a sudden you get a short field. Like, these things are, and I wish that I were just pulling things out of thin air, but again, however you want to count it, I'll just go with the total number 9 just for ease. But 9 turnovers in the last 2 weeks. It's not crazy to see another 1 or 2, at least from Miami to Clemson, and then, y'all cashing that in. So we'll see. Falconer TRX doubling his normal 305. Jordan, what has Clemson done to prepare for the turf at Miami's home stadium, aka Hard Rock?
You have to understand, Jordan, there's a long-standing little inside joke with TRX and turf, and so
yeah.
But I mean, I would imagine it's not any different than, I mean, we haven't been down there since 2015, so I'd imagine you have to practice a little bit different. But
that's a lie, because y'all have played in the Orange Bowl multiple times. Don't sit here and say, like y'all haven't been down here. It's the same stadium with the same turf. Stop lying, Jordan.
I was given the benefit of the doubt, and I was like, we haven't been down there to play Miami in a long time. So that I guess that probably was the distinction. But yeah, I mean, it hasn't been any different. I mean, and even in the bye week, Clemson was, Dabo was pretty frank. He was like, we haven't even done a whole lot of preparation for Miami specifically. It was a lot of, what do we need to do for Clemson? So, whatever that means. But it's no different than any other road trip. Obviously, Clemson plays on natural grass, so that obviously has to you have to take that into consideration, and that's something that they practice for all the time. So
I'll ask this question, Jordan.
The turf is natural grass.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I've never been down there, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, it's an NFL stadium. They have natural grass.
That's right. Good point.
I've got a quick question, Jordan. That's one of those impossible questions to truly answer. But because we've seen Clemson, in 2021, drop games early, play themselves out of the conference race, but then pretty much show that they're the best team in the conference by the end of the season and really play for pride and really talk up, hey, we're at a championship level program. This is what we do. We win double digits, and so we play for pride. And they did that in 21. They did that last season. They played themselves out of a national championship possibility, but then they still rebounded to just wax North Carolina in the ACC title game. So this season, they've kind of played themselves out of it. If you can do the math, obviously, they've got this horrendous mountain to climb against Florida State and Duke in terms of dropping those two games, and those two teams continue to win. So they're almost at a 3-game deficit. So the math is just working against them by the week. So they've been sluggish since that Florida State game. And we all know how close they came to winning that game, how they had the game. How much of a gut punch was that? Because that's pretty much the season right there. They win that game. The outlook right now is completely different. They're tied with Florida State right now.
I'm laughing I'm laughing at Falconer's chat. He said, "I love the serious response to an absurd question. Well done, Jordan. Any interest in politics?" I did run for student government in high school, so I mean that's about as close as we're going to get to that one. But I appreciate the question. But to answer your question, Mark, I mean it was pretty brutal. I mean that's one of the more disappointing results that I can remember. From a Clemson standpoint, losing that Florida State game the way that you did. I mean you felt like you had thoroughly outplayed them for most of the game. And obviously the strip sack fumble that was returned for a touchdown was killer. The missed field goal by a kicker that you got literally off of out of Charleston. He was just sitting, getting ready to take a job up in New York. He was on the team last year. It just all of that, compounded together. And then obviously your best corner goes out right at the end of regulation. And then his replacement ends up giving up the game-winning touchdown. Just so many things that happened in that game that just make you think like this team is extremely close to having a completely different outlook on the season. But you mentioned 2021, and I think this is a really good comparison in a lot of ways. I think offensively, Clemson is in a lot better shape than that 2021 team is, and the defense has performed about as well. The number, the scoring defense, factors in a lot of the points that Clemson has given up off of turnovers this year. But when you take those out, it's pretty comparable to that 2021 defense. So yeah, I think this team just has to get off the mat, and Dabo has shown in the past that this team doesn't quit even when they take a couple of losses. So I mean, I expect a spirited effort from Clemson on Saturday, but we got a spirited effort from them against Florida State, and they still came up short. So it depends. But that Florida State game was I don't know where I would rank it, because I'd probably need to give it time. But that was a pretty gut-wrenching loss. And I went in expecting a loss. I predicted a loss on my show, and still was not prepared for how that game played out.
Folks, we appreciate you being here, the voice of college football. This is what we do every Wednesday night. We talk Florida. Been talking way too much Florida State. Talking Miami football. Yes, of course. Cam's going to give me the just death stare after that Freudian slip there.
Just going to shake my head.
We don't care for him either, so
I'm not going to be able to get back in his good graces for a while now. Man. All right. Miami football talk, folks. Here every Wednesday night with Cam.
Look, man,
7 o'clock Eastern time.
You see it. I wear it proudly. Come on.
Not that we don't mix in that team as well from time to time. They enter the conversation.
It's kind of unavoidable.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and we'll see them later, but yeah, in terms of this week, I don't have much confidence to be perfectly honest. That's why I was so very, very, very mad about the most idiotic loss I've ever seen against Georgia Tech, because that game mattered, and I pretty much thought that we're going to lose to Carolina, and it's a different situation if either or both of these teams are here at 5-1, but like, you got consecutive losses in the ACC. You're pretty much out of it already because there's 2 other undefeated teams in conference still. You drop this one to Clemson, which I think is going to happen. And, then Mario Cristobal drops to 0-6 at home in ACC play since he's taken, we have not won a home conference game with him as our coach. Now you're 4-3, and, where are you going to rally? And I mean, it's the inverse of what you were talking about of the Clemson program under Dabo Swinney. Even if you get, knocked down, you get up, you punch back, you figure it out, you find the path forward, rally the troops, batten the hatches, all that stuff, push forward, find some wins, you increase the performance, everybody dials in, and boom, boom. But for Miami, and so that's the same old Clemson that y'all have been for a decade. Regardless, we're going to find a way through, even with the setback, going to push forward, hit those 10 wins every single year, but it comes together. For Miami, same old sorry-ass Miami is the opposite. It's already a 2-game losing streak. It could turn to 3. Then what's going to happen? You got guys who might, injuries. You got guys sitting out, dissension in the locker room, houses. I mean, the quarterback's putting up numbers, but we're not winning. What's going on here? What's going on there? What I'm seeing, I have seen so many times, and it's the opposite from what's going on at Clemson. So this is a real big game for both teams. I think it's it's massive to get to 5-2 as opposed to 4-3 for whoever wins this. But it's huge. And I mean, I'm a Miami alum, I want Miami to win. I will be pushing for Miami to win. That's what I want to see happen. It's just, I've seen this movie too many times, and I have negative confidence and faith in the trajectory of this organization and program through the rest of this season, including this weekend. I don't see it. And I know that I am being, doubting Thomas and ye of little faith. That's me. I need to see it. And I thought I'd seen it against Texas A&M, but then you just undo all that good work and things are spiraling. And when things have spiraled in this way in previous years with consecutive losses or multiple things like that, and Mark, I've said this on the show for nigh on a decade, because we've been doing this for 10 years now, right? I've been saying I need somebody to step up and make a positive program changing play. And I don't know who that's going to be. And I thought we had it at one time with Trajan Bandy in 2017, but then you go out and you do that on, the day after Thanksgiving, and that tanked the 2018 recruiting class because we had pushed all the recruiting to postseason to focus on getting to the playoff, focus on all of those things. And then it tanks before the conference championship game and things like this. So I've seen this so much that I would like it if I could be more positive, but just this is giving me negative flashbacks. And I see y'all coming in here and doing the thing and leaving with a double-digit win. I really honestly do.
So if I'm reading this correctly, you're somewhere between losing faith in what's going on this particular season only, but it's starting to spill maybe into long-term losing faith in Cristobal.
I'm saying that the failings that are ongoing in this season remind me of this season, that season, this season, that season, this season, that season. I think it will take more to really change things, but more losses might have a negative tangible effect on recruiting. And if we got him here as a talent acquisition specialist, as the best recruiting head coach in America, right? If that's supposed to be the thing, And in the next year, when you finally, and he said it after the Texas A&M game, this is proof positive. This is the one. This is proof of concept of what we're building. Jaden Davis was in the recruiting section in 2017 for the Notre Dame game, and he's out there on the field talking about, yo, this stadium sounded like it did that day on this day. So, and you have all those things, but then even that caps off and maybe doesn't have the upward projection that I thought it could have after that game. Then we got to ask some questions about things, because clearly he's not here as a game manager because he managed the way into a loss that was a surefire victory if he would have just taken a knee. So, I'm not there yet, but I see that as we're driving in Colorado, and I'm not in the Rockies. I'm not at the mountain, but I see the mountain, if that makes sense.
And you mentioned losing a couple more games. Don't let Dabo know, because apparently he thinks losing a couple of games is might be a good thing. So I honestly don't know what to expect on Saturday, and that's kind of giving me some pause this week.
Hey, man, have him tell that to the team in the locker room. Hey, if that would be good for y'all growth to suffer through some adversity, then just pick today or pick this Saturday as a game for y'all to lose. That would be helpful for me. And, everybody gets what they're looking for. I get the win. Dabo gets the loss to build character. We're good with that.
Sounds like a deal.
So you think culture can spill over from one tenure to another, meaning you're citing some Mark Richt era culture breakdowns?
We've seen it since Larry Coker in literally when it started to come apart in 2003 on a Thursday night in Chapel Hill when Connor Barth hit a field goal for the first loss in the regular season since my freshman year, which was week 2 at Washington. So we lost the second week of my freshman year. Yeah. And then not until my senior year during the season. I actually am saying that because we've seen this. And I know that is what Mario is trying to correct. He's trying to leave that in the past, but this feels very, if we got to go back to what Mark Richt's first year when we won 3 games or 4 games to start, but then lost 4 games in the middle of the season, back to back to back to back. That 2015 season when everybody in America got to make fun of Notre Dame for going 4-8, except for us because we found a way to lose to that terrible team. Yeah, no, this is feeling very much like that. And we can go into the bag and say, okay, well, where did other multiple game losing streaks happen? Yes, this feels exactly like that. Maybe even a little bit worse because we have better talent and they're just giving the other team the ball all the darn time. And North Carolina was on the level. That Georgia Tech team is terrible. That Georgia Tech team is terrible. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the negative scale for that one absolutely makes me think, sure, this seems like that and that and that and that. So until I see something tangibly happen that tells me and shows me in terms of performance and result that the culture and the performance has changed on the field, yeah, I'm thinking about what I've seen before. Absolutely, 100%.
All right, guys. Any final takes?
Clemson by double digits.
I'm going to give a little bit more conservative score prediction. I'm going to say Clemson 24, Miami 17. That's kind of where I feel. I'm giving a 3 confidence on it. I really don't think this is a Clemson team that's going to blow a team of Miami's caliber out right now, just based off of what I've seen. But Cam, as you mentioned, Dabo seems to like to get this team up for Miami for whatever reason. I remember the video of him cutting the chain. Was that after? I think that was after the ACC championship. It was 2017.
In 17, yeah.
The turnover chain. Yeah, I know that was that one blew up. So he does seem to get some joy out of beating up on Miami. So maybe he does get the team up. But I don't know. Just based off of what I've seen, that 2017 team is miles ahead of where this team is right now. So I think while Miami has lost 2 games and the way that they lost these last 2 games, I think they're better than that. And I think the narrative is a lot different if they take a knee against Georgia Tech and they, even if they still lose the way they did against North Carolina, I mean, you come out with an ugly win, but you're 5-1.
Well, I mean,
know,
it's not
things
even
go
the
on.
narrative; it's the actual state of affairs being different. But
Yeah.
what I think it is I used to work at Miramar High School. I mentioned that earlier. So I called Geno Smith's games from the press box his junior and senior year of high school, and honestly, I think that West Virginia hanging 70 on y'all in that Orange Bowl took that personally against the city of Miami and
Good
then
memories.
transferred that to the University of Miami. I was like, we had nothing to do with it. We were like, literally, we got tickets at the schoolhouse. I was the choir director. Me and the band staff, like 5 of us, went with those tickets and sat in the upper deck and watched that happen. But obviously, yeah, Dabo said, no, that happened in Miami. We don't play West Virginia all the time. But what we can do is when it's in Miami or against the University of Miami, we're going to light that fire from that day and spin that forward against the U. I honestly think that's where it comes from because there's no other reason. But hey, we'll see what happens.
It's got to be something. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, and it's going to be pretty brutal for either fan base, no matter the result.
Yeah.
Coming out at least for one of the fan bases coming out of this game, because obviously things are spiraling out of control a little bit.
I mean, just honestly, somebody's coming out of this game at 4-3, and regardless of how they got there, that's going to be a real big fodder for discussion. So, I appreciate meeting you, man. I appreciate having you on. We'll see what happens. In general, to you, best of luck. I hope that y'all lose on Saturday, but I don't think it's going to happen. But we'll see.
Absolutely, man. Great to be here, and glad to meet you.
Likewise.
Jordan, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks.
Jordan Bowman hosts our Clemson coverage at the Voice of College Football on the Clemson channel, Thursday night show, post-game as well. Cam, what's going on at State of the U?
Got a bunch of stuff, all of our normal game week stuff, ACC power rankings, state of Florida power rankings, all that kind of stuff. Justin DeTavio actually spoke with several college coaches about what they do in the coach's box during the game and how that supports game operations and play calling and just managing through games. So that's actually up on stateoftheu.com right now. So you should definitely go check that out. All of that and more. I got a question and answer going up with Ryan Cantor from Shaking the Southland, our Clemson sister site. I actually need to send him my responses this evening. So I'm going to stay on my computer and do some typing after this gets done so that he can post my answers on their site, which will hopefully be going up tomorrow. But all of that and so much more. So please come on over to stateoftheu.com and fan with us. The State of the U is where we're at on socials, and my personal Twitter account is at Underwood Sports, where there's a second secret show now that I'm not telling y'all about, but I am very much enjoying.
I want to make sure that we don't miss this from Falconer TRX, of course. Get right game for Miami, hair of the dog.
I mean, I guess hair of the dog. I mean, it's an 8 p.m. game though, so like we don't necessarily need to get up and have some hair of the dog. If you're hungover, basically, have a drink early in the morning and kind of just keep it going, kind of a thing. But it's an 8 p.m. game, so do that if you want to, but you might be passed out by kickoff.
Falconer TRX with a daughter at the U says Miami is a basketball school.
I mean, it's been ranked top 13. Or 13th in the AP preseason for the men, 25th for the women heading into the year. Good recruiting on both sides and everything. So, I mean, basketball is the more successful program right now. But let's be honest, if people really know the U around the world, they know it because of football. And hopefully we'll be able to match the performance to make that to the front of their brain for those reasons, for current performance and results, not necessarily historical kind of things, but one step at a time. And the next step is against Clemson on Saturday night. So we'll see you guys there.
Cam, thank you for what you do. Appreciate you being here, man.
Always. You guys have a great week. We'll see you next Wednesday.
All right, folks, post-game coming up Saturday after Miami and Clemson step off the field. Post-game right here at the Voice of College Football. And, of course, make it on back next Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern Time with Cam and I on the Hurricanes Live Show. We'll see you then.